A director should never be mean, and a director should never be petty.
You should never say, act better.
Because what does that mean? Or
go bigger, or like tone it down a bit.
Do it more sad. What does that mean?
Don't abuse them. Don't abuse an actor. I think that's a good rule.
As a director, you should never be anything but 100% kind and respectful of your actors. Doesn't mean that you can't get serious. Doesn't mean that you can't ask for what you want and be a professional.
Because I think it's very important for them to have a safe space to work.
The caricature of the Hollywood director that's yelling at people from a distance through a megaphone. Maybe that does exist. I've never seen it. But I don't think it works in the short film space. I think it definitely shouldn't work in a student film space.
If the actor feels insecure, they can't give you the best performance.
Sometimes the most important thing is just to give them a direction, because that way they feel like, it doesn't even matter what the direction is necessarily, just so they feel that you're in control and that you've got their back and that you're watching out for them.
So if it's something where they're meant to be really angry in the moment, say maybe what happened before the events of this scene that might have led up to the actor feeling so angry and feeling this way and lashing out. I think a bit of backstory to the character is good at informing the emotion in a scene rather than just saying to do it a bit more.
You shouldn't puppeteer your actor. Like, you shouldn't micromanage your actor. In my philosophy is that I shouldn't micromanage, actors. You can do whatever. I don't care. You have the potential of really extending this character to limits that you're not even aware of. They've got this whole grain of experience and this information and this thought process that will never compare to your own.
But there's certain things you're taught that you should never do with an actor, or like give a line reading or something like that. And yet I've seen that on professional sets, so I don't know if there are any hard and fast rules there.
You can say anything to an actor. You can say anything to an actor so long as you and that actor have got trust.
Because once that's broken, I think the relationship is kind of worthless.
So, Miles Davis says, it took me a long time to learn how to play like myself. We've explored walking like ourselves. Now, and we'll just get in a circle, we're going to talk a little bit about learning to talk like ourselves. So sometimes that's literally us sitting with like poor theater style, like all on these like plastic chairs, improvising what a ride in a car looks like with people that are never even in the same scene in the film, because something about that energy gives you new ideas about what you're going to bring in the next scene that's actually in the film.
Well, I think rehearsals are really different from film to films.
I think it also depends on the narrative that you're exploring, like what exercises you'd use in those rehearsals, but doing some improv and kind of like character building stuff. And I think it's really helpful in rehearsals for you to build the character with the actors.
Investigate with them, why are we looking at this character and why are they feeling this way?
I try to keep it very casual. I mainly use rehearsals as a way to block out the scene.
So that we all have a sense of when we arrive on set on the day, there's little sort of fumbling about trying to figure things out. We're sort of there with the scene ready to go.
A lot of my rehearsals as well is just literally just talking with my actors, just talking about the themes and the ideas of how we feel just in general life.
Play with some new techniques that maybe I didn't think of before or hadn't thought of while writing the script.
So I gave her some homework. But that's actually very, very helpful. So I just asked her to answer some questions about the character. Like every time when the character speaks, why does she say this and what's she thinking and how does she feel.
Even like forgetting the scene, who are you, where did you grow up, etc., etc. I loved creating this really warm, large, comprehensive view of this person.
I'm really trying to workshop, the intuition and instinct of the character, because you can remember lines and you can remember a script, but on the day, it's really just about instinct. Once these workshops build that instinct, you can go away from the script as well, and you can create a lot of incredible things that, would never be in your script.
So they did about 3 weeks of boxing training together, which meant that they began to get an intimate knowledge of each other's body and movement, because boxing is all reactive, and it's mirroring the other person's movement and body. And it meant that there was a kind of intimacy that had been developed before we made it to start the first scene. And they were comfortable with each other because, they were learning something new together. They got to be silly together.
When you do rehearsals, there's this thing that's often said, don't overcook a scene. And that's always been really tough for me because I want to get it to perfection. But they say you should stop just before perfection.
You will feel when you're ready. And there's no such thing as too much rehearsal, in my opinion. I feel like if there's room for improvement and investigation, you should take that opportunity to jump in. And for me, rehearsals is just workshopping.
To get the performance you want, I think it's all about going back to what you and your actor have discussed as the backstory for this character.
Let us just reassess the basics. It's about going to the basics. You ask the actor, where are you coming from? What happened just before the scene? What needs to happen in the scene? What do you want? And what are you willing to do to get it?
It's going to sound weird, but as a director, you almost need to be a little bit of a psychologist too. And you need to very, very lovingly manipulate your actors sometimes.
You're needing to say to that person, look, I've got one that I can use maybe, but I think there's more in this and I trust you and I'm giving it over to you. Here's the go. Do it. We can take 10, we can take 5, we take 20 minutes. Just, let's calm it all down. Do the scene the way you want to do the scene.
A lot of what we see as a good performance is actually an actor really loving doing a scene, like really enjoying feeling that feeling or feeling those words in their mouth. If you give your actor the permission to do that and to take joy in what they're doing, sometimes even if it's a dark scene, that's the thing that's going to translate. And you're going to see that. The audience is going to feel that, and they're going to feel infected by that energy and that aliveness that the actor is bringing.
Sometimes I believe that your body will bring the energy, out of it. Like if you tell the actor, just relax or, feel more sad, it won't work for them. But if you change their body gesture or some body movements, it will actually work on their feeling, their emotions. So I'm very into some kind of body training.
It's really hard to remember exactly what's happening in this flashback and what he needs to emote. So what I got him to do was I said, all right, so we sat down and it was a non-dialogue scene anyway. And while he was imagining things, I spoke to him through it. I said, okay, you're sitting in your bed. It's this warm, cozy cabin. You've got your blankets pulled up to your chin. You're feeling tired. You want to sleep. And then out through the door, your mum walks in and she's got this hot cup of hot chocolate. And when you take an actor through a scene like that, you see the scene come alive in their eyes.
Sometimes you don't get what you're looking for as the director. And in that case, you've got to interrogate, is your way of thinking really true for this actor and for this character?
You think about your performances as these big oil tankers, going through the ocean. They have a huge momentum to them going through these waves. You can do little course corrections when you get on set. You can shift this way, you can shift that way. But if you need to turn that whole ship around and go in a different direction because it's not working, no way. It's not going to happen. So, pick the right oil tanker in the beginning. You stop filming when you have the shot or you feel like you have a mutiny on your hands.
I definitely think if you're doing more than 10, that's too many in my opinion. I think maybe 4 or 5 takes is good for me, but
if you're doing 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 takes and it feels wrong, it's not working, then something is not working. Something about the scene is not working. Something about the dialogue is not working, or where the camera is not working, and you need to figure out how to change it. Don't torture your actors and your crew by doing a million takes.
But there'll be some actors who needs to get into the rhythm.
But yeah, just be very careful, don't make the actor too tired, because, they still have so much to do for the day.
Intimacy on screen is a really interesting and challenging thing to achieve.
It's interesting, and times are changing, but there's a lot of regulations around violence in films. There's a lot of paperwork that you need to do if you have a stunt or a fight scene, or guns. There's even a dedicated person that you have to have on set that looks after the violence in your film. But when it comes to sex, there's not a lot of regulation around it, and it is changing, and there are people who are putting themselves forward as experts in this space.
I think best practice always is you have to be transparent, like in the casting stage.
so if you're doing a scene that's really personal or requires a lot of emotional energy from the actor, it's really important to make sure that you have a closed set and that everyone on set is quiet while we're shooting. And that you make your actor feel as comfortable as possible in the moment.
So I sat down with Sebastian and Michael, and we went through the sex scene as if it was a stunt, as if it was a dance. And the thing is that actors are working. And so the intimacy in a sex scene, it's not real intimacy. They are working. And so you need to approach it like a stunt.
So I think that the difficult thing about intimacy on screen is that there are a couple of stereotypes. There's a balance of power at play that is particularly hetero. It's male. It's often white, and it's all about the male gaze oftentimes. So for me, I'm still struggling with how to authentically represent intimacy in new, fresh ways that don't kind of perpetuate the old kind of ways of seeing.
Like, don't just have a sex scene because you want a sex scene. Like, there's many ways you can represent sex without actually showing people having sex. And so if you are going to do it, make sure it's necessary, because it is a lot of work. And it's a really big thing to ask people to do.